Hey, this is Brookes with Character Design Forge. In order to help explain our topic today, I'm shooting at a little bit of a lower angle, and that's because I have a special guest with me. My little brother from back home, he's staying with us for about a week. He needed to be elevated about 4.5 feet to be visible in frame, and he can barely see out of either of his eyes. It's Tristan. Oh, you're laying down now. Now, Tristan here is about 9 or 10 years old, and back when I was living with him, I had done some drawings of a Dachshund type character, but instead of looking at the Dachshund that I was living with for reference, I just knew what he looked like and just drew off the top of my head. But obviously that didn't work out too well. Now, when you go to draw something, you might say something along the lines of, I already know what that looks like, and forego drawing any studies. However, I'm here to tell you that that's the absolute best thing that you could be doing for your art. Oh, I saw the title of the video, man. That ain't clickbait. All things that we create art of can be separated into two categories, things that exist and things that we imagine. Now, the thing about those imaginary things is that they're often remixes of already existing things. That means that when we go to create imaginary creatures, places, characters, or objects, they're often filtered through or contain elements of things that already exist. Old imaginary creatures like dragons or griffins are basic examples of this. They're either lizards with bat wings or other features, or cats that have eagle parts. Now, why am I saying all of this, Tristan? Why? Well, no matter what you're about to draw, it's always beneficial to do studies ahead of time. Now, studies are drawings that are often done realistically of an object or a reference to help you to understand the subject better. Now, studies are not about expressing something artistically. They're not even about designing something. It's a form of intake, again, to help you understand better. Studies can be done by first collecting reference images, although it's even better if you can see your reference in person. The key thing here is that you are not going to be drawing a stylized or simplistic version of your reference right off the bat. Remember that stylization is, in a way, drawing things the wrong way intentionally. Studies are all about drawing it the right way to the best of your ability. In other words, you're not trying to make a cartoon of your reference, you're trying to make a replica. And it's so easy if you draw something in an exaggerated or simplified way to say, well, that's just my style, I meant to do it that way. But in the case of reference studies, that's a shortcut that we're not going to take. Try to realistically represent the sizes, the forms, and the proportions of your reference as accurately as you possibly can. Now, if I was looking to do say a Dachshund study, I could go about it a few different ways. I could do a texture study of how the hair grows on him and how it flows throughout the forms of him. I could do a study on how different kinds of light affect a Dachshund as it hits it from different intensities and directions. But what I'm going to do is probably the most common form of reference, which is anatomy and the general structure and construction of the Dachshund. One trick I've always benefited from when studying a living thing is to find reference images of their skeleton. Most creatures are going to be constricted by and form around what their skeletons look like and how much they can move. For example, knowing where the bone of the eye socket ends and the other components of the eye begin is a great way to know the depth of the things in that region. What? What? Yeah? Tell them. Tell them all about it. Tell them all about it. What? Don't be afraid to do an image search of your creature's skeleton. Usually you can find some medical and biological diagrams and illustrations that laying out the skeleton. Otherwise, you can see some cleaned and bleached skulls and bones for most animals out there, and you won't find anything gory or disturbing unless you're really looking for it. Now, in character design, we already use construction to lay out our characters with forms and shapes, so a skeleton is a great thing to use as a reference study. Now, as you're creating the inner workings of your reference, you don't need to hyper-realistically detail every bone inside the body. Instead, pay attention to things like the proportions of the limbs and where all of the joints go. For an even more effective study, try and draw your reference from multiple angles. As you rotate them in 3D space, you get a much better understanding of the forms that your reference comprises. Here are a few techniques, and a lot of them come from realism. Try and use straight lines to quickly measure out things like proportion before you add curves. Going along with this, work from the larger overall shapes of your reference and work your way down toward the detail. Don't start with the detail. Try squinting at your reference to the point where you're emulating the very limited vision of a 10-year-old dachshund who is just trying his best. When you squint, you'll be able to see the more general shapes that your reference is made up of, and the light and dark shapes will make themselves more prominent when you do that. And if you look at your own drawing and back at your reference while squinting, you'll be able to see the overall proportions and see how accurate you are. Of course, one of the best things to do reference studies of over and over again is humans, life drawing, and gesture drawing. The amount that we can learn from drawing humans is invaluable. Being able to represent something believably that we so readily recognize is one of the best things that you can do for your art, which is why drawing humans is this sort of touchstone for all artists, even if they don't find themselves drawing humans or human characters very often. You can do studies that aren't just of reference, but style studies as well. It's a great exercise to select a few pieces of work from an artist that you'd like to learn from and try recreating one of their pieces, then creating a new piece as if you're imitating them, in order to learn and think the way that they do. Remember that as an artist, you aren't creating anything that's 100% original. Rather, you're expressing yourself with pieces of things that you've collected and are now filtering through yourself. So the more things that you draw on for inspiration, the more diversity and complexity that expression can have. Now that you have a better understanding of the things that you referenced, you can exaggerate it, simplify it, incorporate elements of it into other art. I guarantee you'll end up with a better final product than if you didn't study ahead of time. Not only should your reference study help you draw this specific thing, but it should help your drawing skills in the long term. Now, the Dachshund studies that I did in this video for demonstration purposes are by no means extensive, but already I can see when I started trying to draw simplified and exaggerated versions of Tristan here, I could already see a difference in what I was able to create. I'd like to challenge you the next time that you go to draw something to incorporate some studies into your process and see the difference that it makes. I'm going to keep things short at the end here. My Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch, along with my Patreon at patreon.com/bageldenizen, will all be in the end card to this. I just have one request for you. If you see this video and you'd like to see more videos from me, please hit the bell notification symbol next to the subscribe button if you'd like to see more from me. I don't know what's going on with YouTube recently, but it's getting a little bit tougher to rely on the subscription box. Tristan, what do you think? You can't see. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating.